Hello again, aspiring comics creators. My name is Luke here. I go online as Coltreg, and welcome back. My goal again is not to give you the secrets to having a comics career, because if I knew how to do that, I would be writing comics for money as opposed to making YouTube videos for free. My goal is to help you to get a comic completed because that gives you a better chance to go from wannabe comics writer to comics writer. And then if you have the drive, the talent, the common sense, and ability to get money together, yada yada yada, then along with luck and connections and or money, you might be able to make a living writing comics, but it is never easy. And if you find someone telling you the easy way to make a living making comics, um, keep an eye on your wallet. So we are now going to get to part two, which is finding a collaborator. And I am going to be real with you, people who likely have no artistic ability. You can still make a comic by yourself. I have. I am not a good artist, but I literally made a book all by myself in the course of an afternoon, and you could too. Even if it is just stick figures. There is a local artist who just draws stick figures, and he gets invited to events and gets paid money. When I started making comics back in high school, every night I'd just draw a few comics on loose leaf paper. The art wasn't good, but I made comics. And the comics that I have made by myself are better than the comics that I never actually completed because I was waiting for other people. Also, as a side note, I studied graphic design in a VOTech program during high school and even initially majored in graphic design in college to begin, but I kind of came to the terms that I didn't like doing that sort of work, and I was too lazy to put in the work to get better. So I switched into web design and interactive media. So I do have some background in design and this sort of thing. But right now I make comics and podcasts and videos to try and fill a creative hole in my heart because I want something that I can feel invested in, and I feel like a lot of other people are looking for that. Maybe not when they're younger, but I think as you get older, you kind of want something that is yours, something that is going to be a legacy that you can make. I will also note that I can and still do draw, and part of the reason for that is I want to be a better writer and a better collaborator, but I'll probably get into that in a future episode. So keep marking off everything that I promised as future episodes because I probably won't remember that. So few people can make or want to make comics all by themselves, even professional artists. The ways that we work with other people is also a fundamental part of the creative experience, especially when it comes to comics. And working with other people for money is complicated. Working with other people for no money is even harder. And so this is where we're going to talk about collaborating, finding collaborators, and more. I don't want these to run much over 20 minutes. So I also want to make a very clear and explicit point. Don't use generative AI. Not only is it based on stolen work, it is actively increasing energy prices where you live. It is increasing the likelihood of droughts all around the world. It is also not a solution to making comics because it doesn't do everything. It's not going to do lettering. It's not going to think about the panel or the page. Even for concept art, you are better off Googling and putting in a no AI search filter to find reference material that you would share with artists as opposed to using generative AI. I have seen plenty of people, and I am one myself, who like using generative AI is a black mark on your career in the same way that getting involved with NFTs was. So just don't use it. So when I discuss collaboration here, I want to define it as working with an artist or partners for a mutual speculative gain and no upfront money. Basically, if we make money off of this, we split it, but nobody gets anything initially. There are no paid collaborations, but chances are if you're watching this video, you have no money and you want to make comics and don't just want to draw stick figures. I am also going to say that I see it so many times. Offering an even split between you and an artist is bullshit because, like I said in the last video, ideas are cheap, and while scripting is more work, it is so much faster and easier to do than actually drawing pages, unless you write as you draw, and that is how I made Watchmen vs. Aliens in an afternoon. I would also point out that one of the most well-regarded writers at Marvel right now is Ryan North. He got his start writing Dinosaur Comics, which is essentially a sprite comic that never changes the art. He has written thousands of strips, and that has proved that he can write. Like, he did this back when I was in high school, and also has done a lot of other successful writing and business ventures and other things. But you could go and do the same sort of thing if you really just want to write a comic. Like, there is nothing wrong with doing that. If that satisfies the creative urge and you do it consistently, you can build an audience doing that as something that you love. Typically, a writer in a basic collaboration like this only plans to script and write. And I mean, hopefully they plan to script, because you can't really Stan Lee and tell the artist what they're going to draw and the story, and then you go off and play the flute while your uncle is a publisher with mob connections, and then you actively expose two of the biggest traders for the company who are trying to leave to get a better deal, and that's getting into Stan Lee, who I've got thoughts on. In a two-person collab, it means that if you're only writing and scripting, the artist is going to draw the pages. The artist is also going to finish the pages, which may include inking and or coloring. They're probably going to do the lettering, and they're going to do the print setup for the pages. And a lot of writers will expect them to do all of this because they aren't really thinking about this at all. And they assume that an artistic collaborator can do everything, and they might be able to do everything. They might not be great at everything. Bad lettering can end up killing a comic very easily. It's one of those things where the difference between bad lettering and good lettering can make or break a comic. And it also ignores that, oh, there's going to be a lot more production steps for getting this whole project together and into a state where people can buy it and receive it, or even just read it online. So usually, if you find an artist who is willing to work with you as a writer, it is because maybe you are someone they know, or you have an idea that interested them, or they've heard that you're good to work with, or they're looking for some initial work on a portfolio, and it's like, cool, an artist is willing to work with me. That's great. I can make a comic. And if you're a new writer, the chances are you are working with this artist because they gave you the opportunity, and this is kind of where we're going to see a lot of trouble brewing. Getting to that point is going to be difficult because you need to find a place to go and find collaborators, and I will vaguely say, / I'll probably link to this on the subreddit, but this video series was inspired by me going to a particular subreddit and getting tired of offering the same advice time after time. And I am also aware that most people looking for an artist won't see this video, and I will continue to write hundreds of words of advice to people who are going to mostly ignore it or just give up on their comic plans there. But, you know, if this video series helps one person make a comic, like one writer make a comic, that kind of validates everything that I'm doing here, and I'm fine with that. But basically, when you're going to be looking for a artistic collaborator as a writer, you should invest some time into learning other skills like coloring or lettering or even just print setup, these skills might not benefit you all that much right now, but they can also, if you develop them enough, lead to more paying work in comics and opportunities to write comics for money. Nathan Fairbairn was an aspiring writer who started coloring. He turned out to be very good at coloring. Like, he did the color editions of Scott Pilgrim, he worked on Invincible, Spider-Man, and he spent that time building connections, and that eventually led him to the opportunity to write his first book that like was a full series and everything, Lake of Fire, and then he moved into Pause, which is a kid-oriented series because between you, me, and everyone else, there's a lot more money in graphic novels for kids as opposed to the direct market, but that is also a conversation for another video. If you can't pay to hire an artist, you need to be clear, patient, and reasonable. If an artist has a choice between working for money or working for you, you need to find some way to add value. Offering to handle something, even printing costs for the books or handling layouts or crowdfunding management, is helpful. These are all actual things that I've offered when working with collaborative partners. And like even with coloring and lettering, there are tutorials online, there are free tools that you can use to do this. So these are skills that you can pick up and they can help your comics career. When you are ready to reach out to an artist or even just make a blind community post, you need to explain who you are and show some proof of who you are. Like if you're a writer, show your writing skills, both in linking any public writing that you've done. Like theoretically, you have written something else besides like schoolwork or documents. Like any creative work that you are comfortable sharing is good. If you don't have any creative, comfortable work that you're sharing, write some, because you should enjoy writing if you're trying to get more work writing and you're trying to convince someone to write you. Also, like when you write a post, make sure the post is well written. I have seen so many people posting saying, hey, I am a writer, and they just go in like horribly written posts. They go off on rants that aren't helpful, grammar and spelling errors aplenty. That is not how you're going to inspire confidence. If you are also like a college student and you might have finals, that is important to know. If you think that your personal identity is important to the comics that you make, call that out. And also, if you have a large following, because like you host a podcast or you're popular on social media, that can also be a benefit, because you know what that means? That means that people are probably actually going to buy something that you produce, as opposed to, well, we can just release it into the market. Yeah, we'll cover the direct market and crowdfunding and all that sort of stuff in a future video. So as for what you pitch, you can either pitch a specific idea, or you can talk about collaborating. We'll get to collaborating in a few minutes. Don't pitch your big story. Like if you didn't watch the first video that I made, don't say, hey, I want to make a 100-issue comic. It's going to be the first thing that I've ever made. You need to have an idea for this short comic. You need to boil it down to a sentence or two, and you need to like have thought through the idea enough to explain it, because if you post 3 pages of text about your idea and your setting and the biology of elves and orcs in your universe, people probably aren't going to read it. The elevator pitch is something that you need to sell your idea. Get it down, get it memorized, get it clear, and don't be afraid to like share that online. Don't be afraid to share your ideas online, because chances are if someone sees your idea online, they aren't going to be like, oh, well, I want this idea. I'm going to steal this idea. I'm going to put the time, money, and resources into stealing this exact idea. Because people have their own ideas. And if you do just post a 2-sentence elevator pitch, chances are your stories are going to be vastly different. So I also do want to say, if you do have ideas for a bigger universe or a bigger story, or you just want this to be a chapter, you can do that. Just once again, make sure that you are going to be telling something complete in the pages that you're given. And don't don't add steps where people are going to need to contact you to get your elevator pitch or share your ideas or anything else that just makes it harder to say, oh yeah, I want to work with this person. They seem easy. Because in web design theory, there is a idea about the click-through rate where each time you ask a person to do an action to get to the final point, the increased likelihood that they are going to stop the process that they're doing. Don't don't make them like don't make an artist send you a message to hear what your great idea is. Make it simple. I could also talk more about posting good, but you either can post well or you can't. The other idea, as opposed to having an idea, is looking for a collaboration, and this has been one of my favorite ways to work to grow as a writer. It is simply asking your artistic partner, hey, what do you like to draw? And writing a story that plays to their strengths or interests. Like if someone hates drawing cars, don't pitch them car versus motorcycle highways of havoc. And sometimes it might be a case where, well, you really want to do a bloody slasher comic and they prefer shoujo boy love romance comics, and maybe you want to make a superhero book and they just do sprite comics, and you kind of got to work with people who are willing to work with you. And also, not every collaboration is going to work out, and you need to learn to be chill about it because, sometimes you don't click. Sometimes it's just like, yeah, I don't want to work with you. Something like 90% of the artists who I talk to, like even just starting a conversation, those never lead anywhere, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way that it works. Last year, I wrote 3 issues of a series and a world Bible for a potential collaboration, and then the artist was like, yeah, I don't actually want to draw comics, because drawing comics is a lot of work. It requires a lot of skills, and most people who are going to work for free are doing it in their free time, and that's time that they could spend doing things like Baldur's Gate 3, or listening to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe, or spending time with loved ones. And that's fair because, once again, you're asking them to do a lot of work for no reward. So talk to the artist about what their interests are and try and play to your mutual strengths, because that is how you're going to go and learn how to tell other types of stories and make something you both like. One of the first comics that I collaborated on was The Tomb of Naomi, which was a historical Gothic piece with Sarah Delano, who did an amazing job on the story about a young girl and a natural fission reactor under her family estate. Sarah really enjoyed looking up period-appropriate costumes and designs, and was like, cool, let's go with that. 2 great tastes kind of went together. Her art is honestly better than my writing, but decade younger me is not as good of a writer as I am now. Or more recently, I was looking for a collaborator for a superhero project. I reached out to an artist who I previously commissioned. They were busy, but they were like, hey, you work well with me. Let me recommend a few other people. And that introduced me to Suri Vizhyaka, and I ended up writing The Clay, which is an emotional and moody monster romance book. 2 great tastes that go together. And then Suri and I hit it off together. They are flying in from Finland for a comics convention that we are doing together, and we have a larger book coming out called Deer Hunting that has a publisher, and it's like, oh, great! There are so many opportunities. Or I also want to give a shout out to my friend TapirClip, who also has a YouTube channel. We have done a lot of manga tests together, and those are very collaborative. And we also have a collection of those coming out soon. So a lot of promo work, but I'm excited. I have 7 comics coming out next month because I'm an idiot. So also a brief digression on the manga test. A lot of manga publishers in Japan will hold contests where they ask you to write to a theme and a page count, and then you write the comic, draw the comic, post it onto their site, and then it's a popularity contest where the most popular books get feedback, and even editors might leave comments on them. And in theory, you can get a job that way. That's only really viable if you are Japanese, live in Japan, and speak Japanese. But like TapirClip and I have had a lot of fun doing them, and we like have that collection I mentioned. But doing that sort of 3 or 4 page story on a theme, even if you aren't going to submit it to the official contest, is a great way to like get some initial projects. You can post that on social media, and that's a great way to be like, hey, we wrote this comic together. We don't have anything that you can buy right now, but hey, keep an eye and look out for us. And generally, anthologies can be a great opportunity where if you see one, and you have an idea, you can say, hey, there's an anthology, I have this idea. That's an opportunity to find an artistic partner for something limited and something that can get you both paid, assuming that you get in. If you do want homework, if you did that script last time, summarize in 1 to 2 sentences for that elevator pitch if you can, and feel free to post that in the comments below. Hey, this is just over 20 minutes right now. Thank you for listening. Like, rate, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Keep on the comics journey, keep dreaming, and also actually write comics, actually write comic scripts. And I'll see you whenever I do the next video. Thank you very much.